Cyclone Michuang is looming on Chennai as we speak. The severe cyclonic storm is expected to make landfall on India's southern coast early tomorrow morning. Now, Michuang, the name has been proposed by Myanmar and it means resilience. In the Indian Ocean and South Pacific regions, tropical cyclones are named alphabetically and women and men's names are alternated. The system of naming cyclones was adopted by the World Meteorological Organization and the United Nations Economic and Social Commission. Now, talking about the ground situation in Chennai, crocodiles, floating cars and heavily waterlogged streets. Chennai has witnessed today what it witnesses almost every year. The intensity of the impact of Cyclone Michuang is visible even before it has made landfall. Chennai and its nearby areas are submerged, schools are shut, so are courts. Flights have been diverted, trains have been cancelled. The Met Department predicts the rains will continue for the next few hours. Now, the cyclone is expected to make landfall tomorrow between Nellore and Machilipatnam in Andhra Pradesh. And the wind speeds are likely to be somewhere from 90 to 110 kilometers per hour. A red alert has been issued in Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana and Puducherry. And the IMD has warned of heavy to very heavy rainfall in the coming 2 days. Now, today was a public holiday in Tamil Nadu. Tomorrow as well has been declared as a public holiday. The Chennai airport operations were shut today owing to severe waterlogging. Water up to the knee level has entered houses, forcing people to take shelter elsewhere. My colleague Neha spoke with some people through the day earlier today. Listen into some of those voices.
Very bad. We never expect this one.
Okay. Sir, the administration has declared a holiday today. They've asked people to come out only in cases of emergency. So was it an emergency for you?
See, everyone is happy because all the companies not holidays today. Because a few companies are running.
Okay, okay.
So we have to go there.
मुश्किल तो सबको होनी है, इतना पानी भरा हुआ सब जगह और बारिश का तो रुकने का नामो निशान नहीं है सबसे पहली बात। और पूरी रात से इतनी बारिश हुई है ना, इतनी बारिश हुई है, मतलब घर के अंदर भी डर लगता है कि मतलब इतने सारे पेड़ गिर गए, ऊपर से पत्थर उड़ने का बहुत टेंशन है।
अभी मेरा घर पुदुपेट में मेरे घर पानी आ गया, इसलिए मैं भाई के घर जा रहा हूँ, तो यहाँ पे भी रास्ता पूरा बंद है। क्या करना समझ में नहीं आ रहा है मेरे को।
भैया वो कितना दूर है यहाँ से, आप कैसे जाने वाले हैं? अभी
पैदल ही जाना पड़ेगा। ये बाजू थोड़ा अटके गया तो स्टार्ट थिएटर है, उसके सामने घर है, तो पैदल ही जाना पड़ेगा अभी।
Now, Chennai's roads, meanwhile, have turned into rivers due to incessant rainfall. Cars floating, subways completely inundated, with water levels at such heights that it has almost covered an entire truck. But here's the deal. This isn't the first time that Chennai's infrastructure has failed it. In 2015 and in 2021, the city saw exactly the same scenes, and the devastation followed. The question remains, when will Chennai rectify its poor urban planning? Joining me on the show today, Professor Anil Gupta. He is the head policy planning at the National Institute of Disaster Management. Dr. Sudhir Krishna, former Secretary, Ministry of Urban Development, and Anand Sharma, former ADG in the Indian Met Department, join us. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much for speaking with Mirror Now. I'd like to start with you, Dr. Sudhir Krishna. Every year we see such scenes in Chennai, and in 2015, there were severe floods which were attributed to poor reservoir management. No lessons learnt clearly with the kind of scenes and visuals that have emerged today from Chennai.
Well, I think you have rightly said the first and foremost requirement for making the cities resilient for such kind of situations is drainage planning, water management. So the drainage planning means in the watershed basis, wherever the rainwater falls must find its way to the natural terminus. Natural terminus for Chennai is sea, ocean. And therefore, we have to have a plan for the rainwater to fall and wherever fall and flow out. And for that, we require the drains to be cleared, natural drains to be identified, and man-made drains also to be harmonized, and water bodies to be cleared. The lakes, ponds have to be cleared of the muck and waste, and you hold the water. and the drains should be allowing the water to flow out. That is the first requirement. And the second requirement is in the low-lying area, development should not be encouraged. The low-lying areas historically have to be kept clear of development so that they can hold water in case of such eventualities. And thirdly, what we saw that the deaths, of course, luckily not many deaths are there, but some deaths have happened because of electrocution. So the maintenance of these infrastructure, like electrical lines, like the pathways, footpaths, and so on, the drains, they have to be maintained well all times. Then only in such disaster situation, the city can be resilient. These are the fundamental requirements, particularly for Chennai, because East Coast does not have much of gradient. So the gradient being less, the water will not flow out very easily, very fast. It takes time. So these precautions must be taken in proper city planning, which can be done even now in a retrofitting manner also it can be done.
Anand Sharma, considering Chennai's and Tamil Nadu's geographical location, yes, these regions are prone to the kind of natural disasters that we see in them. But how much do other factors contribute, considering also the fact that we are seeing very severe impacts of climate crisis as well around the world?
Yes, I mean, we have two major factors. One is natural climate variability. And in addition to that, now we have anthropogenically induced global warming, leading to extra pressure. And it is also increasing in natural variability. So scientists are saying that there will be more intense and frequent weather events leading to, disruption. But what we are seeing here in Chennai and other parts of India, it's a land cover change, which is becoming more important. As the previous speaker said, it's a drainage issue. So basically, all the cities like Mumbai, Chennai, they're more than 150, 200 years old, and the drainage system is either it's not sufficient, or whatever it was there, it has been encroached upon because of land cover change. So these are the major issues. So land use and land cover change, along with natural climate variability, plus the added pressure of climate change, is leading to these kind of situations.
Professor Anil Gupta, when we know and we are seeing these visuals and we know the kind of poor urban planning that we are seeing in Chennai exists and it hasn't been rectified, the lessons have not been learned, what is the first thing that authorities should be doing when cyclones and natural disasters hit the region, the city?
Is the question for me?
Yes, Professor Gupta, please go ahead.
Hello. So, in fact, if we talk about Chennai, so not only 2015, in fact, it has a long history of flooding. And while we climate scientists consider that climate variability and climate change implications contribute to this making the situation a little worse. But I would stress upon the inherent vulnerability that even if we do not consider the implications of climate change, there are significant alterations of not only the land use, but there has been huge changes in the entire landscape of the region. And that has basically altered the entire hydrological regime. And if we recall 2015, it was a major flood, but 2016 and 17, it was a drought as well. A second thing, it is a cyclonic track, so we should not forget. So entire development, see, the kind of deluge the airport region is now seeing, it's not the first time. The airport has suffered in the past also. So basically now it requires the very serious relook at the development model. And when we talk about resilient infrastructure, it is not only about the major infrastructure, but also the smaller infrastructure and the household level infrastructure. Like we saw that people trying to move from one place to other place for want of the safer shelter. So I think that is also very important. Many times the emphasis is on major infrastructure, for example, the kind of the airport and the things. But I think the entire gamut of this thing has to be seen. While this particular cyclone is not very devastating as at least we anticipate, it is a severe kind of cyclone. But then also some deaths have occurred, and deaths have occurred because of I think that would certainly relate to the poor infrastructure maintenance as well. So it requires a kind of a round the clock and round the year preparedness, because the cyclonic activities have also become more in the west coast, while in the past those were more frequent in the east coast. So now we should consider not only the past experiences but also add to the future projections. So I think these are the critical lessons we should look at.
Anil Sharma, why have, as Professor Gupta said, why has the vulnerability to cyclones increased on the west coast from the few years earlier that we used to see on the east coast?
Yeah, I mean, if you see the past 20, 25 years data, there's a slight increase in the cyclonic activity in the Arabian Sea. As we know, like we get more cyclones in the Bay of Bengal as compared to Arabian Sea, and the major difference is the sea surface temperature. Sea surface temperature of Bay of Bengal is more as compared to Arabian Sea. But then, because of various reasons, and even some people are blaming it on the dust transport and rise in the surface temperature of the Arabian Sea, the frequency in the past 20-25 years has almost doubled in the Arabian Sea. And we have seen that frequent cyclones hitting Gujarat coast in the past 2 decades. So that is one reason. But then, like we need to understand that
global warming,
these are all natural hazards. Yeah, some scientists are telling that it is because of global warming. But then we need to remember one more thing. The normal frequency of cyclone in India is around 4.5 cyclones per year. One. Second thing, the minimum number of cyclones, if we see the past 100 years data, it is 1. And maximum is 9. So that means the natural variability of cyclone hitting the Indian coast is from 1 to 9. So still we haven't seen 7 or like that in past almost 30, 40 years. We have not seen that kind of frequency. So that's again one thing. It's not necessarily that if there's a global warming, the frequency or intensity is definitely changing. It's not indicating in our data. But at the same time, we need to remember that if you see the case of Chennai, most of the IT sector which has come up in Chennai, earlier that was either paddy grown area or they were wetlands. So mafia has taken over the land, and those wetlands have been destroyed, those paddy fields, and all the buildings have come up there. And those are low-lying areas. So naturally, whenever there is a heavy, very heavy or sometimes extremely heavy rainfall event, water is not able to flow, because it's natural drains we have destroyed. So so what we need to think about is that what kind of development model we need. We need development, but we need development with least destruction, one. Second thing, development should be such that it doesn't become hazard or disaster itself. यानी कि what we say is विकास ऐसा हो जो हमें विनाश से बचाए, विकास ऐसा ना हो जो खुद विनाश बन जाए. So what is happening right now, the kind of development model we have adopted,
we're not just seeing it in southern India.
More problems.
We're seeing it in Himachal. We saw it in Uttarakhand.
Yes.
Yeah, we saw it. We saw it in the mountains. We are seeing it on our in our seas and oceans, and that is something that we all need to introspect upon and we need to ponder upon. But Dr. Krishna, talking about the urban planning of Chennai, is it going the Bengaluru way? We've seen the same kind of poor urban planning in Bengaluru as well. The city wants to expand. And, when I was going through my research for today, there were several instances which mentioned that, areas like the shopping hub of T Nagar in Chennai was built on a lake bed. Rapid transport system has severely restricted the flow in the Buckingham Canal, which is basically designed as a protective barrier against floods and sea ingress. These are just some of the very many examples that we have seen in Chennai as to development, construction and infrastructure being given more prominence at the cost of our environment. And that probably is backfiring now.
Absolutely. I think it's not difficult to resolve this challenge. I think the short-sightedness of the development authorities in charge of developmental activities is leading to this situation. You see, if we give good connectivity, the cities can expand horizontally. But because of want of connectivity, people want to remain congregated in the core city, and the city goes on getting denser and denser. It is not only Chennai, almost every city in India is facing that challenge. All cities earlier used to have green belts also, which can be very well used for recreational activities and urban agriculture also. It will sustain the economy. It will give a better quality of life. But for want of good visionary planning and and for want of proper connectivity, so two things are required: drainage planning and mobility planning. Allow cities to expand. See, we can go 50-60 kilometers in 1 hour, then nobody should mind living 30, 40, 50 kilometers away from core city. But if there is no connectivity, there is no mobility arrangement, then people want to remain in the heart of the city. That is one. And secondly, since the governance also has to be stronger, the slum areas, most of the slums all over India, in every city, have come along the water bodies, on the shores of the drains or on the lake shores. They have come up, and so they have destroyed or prevented the rainwater from reaching into the ponds and lakes, and the lakes have got flooded, choked also. Drains have got choked or encroached. So all these things, and now, olden time, there used to be single-story slum buildings. Now the single stories have become 2 to 3 to 4-storied buildings also. It's leading to total mess in the cities. So I think it is high time. And we are having, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, where we have built more than 1.5 crore houses. With all those houses having come up, still the slums are more or less, except some exceptions. In many, many places, the slums are there where they were. And as I said, most are in the low-lying areas on the river and tank and nala embankments. It's causing serious problem to this rainwater management. It is flooding of cities, even short spell of rain. I mean, Chennai, we are seeing a grave situation.
Krishna, can I also then ask you, Dr. Krishna, you've served in the Urban Development Ministry. How does it work? Are these construction activities done after taking into consideration proper ecological guidelines that have been laid down by the government and the ecologists who have been consulted? How does this process really move forward? And on ground, is that implemented?
Well, the thing is, the green areas are identified and notified, all right. But then sometime there is a provision in most of the town plans, master plans, that government can give in specific cases permission for change of the master plan for a particular land and particular. So in a low-lying area, if one entity gets permission for whatever reason, then the next adjoining landowner gets some kind of moral and legal right to claim the same developmental right. So it is short-sighted approach leads to long-term loss to the city. And I think it's high time that we take a relook at the whole drainage, this history of flooding of a city like Chennai or any city for that matter. You map it, and in terms of there are very nice mapping technologies available now, satellite imagery and historical data, all that we can identify very easily. And we have to, first of all, we have to stop further development, in those areas which are flood prone. And secondly, then we have to prepare the plan for, reducing the impact of floods in those areas. It's very much possible. It doesn't cost also much. But then, as I said, that proper connectivity is required and enforcement of the law. Ruthlessly, we have to enforce the developmental, violation of developmental control regulations with no exceptions. See, in wildlife sanctuary, we have to go to so many authorities to do any construction activities in wildlife sanctuary. Similarly, we have to declare sanctuaries in cities also. A small sanctuary like it's a waterbed. I mean, it's a low-lying area should be declared as a sanctuary in its own right. It's high time that we take a call on that matter. And today we have got metro rail connectivity where it is coming up everywhere. So we can connect further places to the core of the city without much difficulty. So it should be possible now more than ever before to resolve this problem.
Anand Sharma, we can talk as much as we want about the concrete planning that we do, the infrastructure development and the construction that we can do to stop this kind of a situation, this kind of a crisis coming into our modern urban cities. But what's the natural way around it? What are the, a few ways in which we can actually stop these things or at least curtail these things to a certain extent naturally? For example, we talk about afforestation. The fact of the matter is that if you plant a tree today, it's going to take several years to actually grow and do its job and help us. But in terms of, the little things that we can do, which probably can help us environmentally, naturally to curtail this kind of a crisis?
Globally as well as in India, now there is a lot of emphasis on nature-based solutions. And in fact, Chennai appears to be I would say that very, very appropriate place for implementing nature-based solutions, because Chennai had nature-based solutions. For example, the temple tanks and these cities, Chennai, Bengaluru, a lot of wetlands were there, which are vanished. And the co-panelists also refer to that. But in fact, for bringing a change, we need to bring people along, because it is not only the administration, or it is not only the business community that can bring the change, but in fact, we need to involve the local people, the people at local level into planning. And people have already seen the kind of challenges in 2015 and 2021. So I think now there is much better scope, and people when people will be involved in this kind of planning, so that then their implementation would also be possible. So not only the notified wetlands, but unnotified the low-lying areas, which also act as buffers for the rainwater runoff. So these things are important. And second thing, that we need to stop compartmentalized planning. So many times the planning for one, the kind of a ward level planning, but we do not connect. And water is not a disconnected entity. The entire water governance of a city has to be seen as the one system, one complete system. So whether it is for floods or whether it is for the water scarcity, because Chennai is not only facing the water, the excess of water or deluge, but it is also facing the water scarcity in some years, and more particularly every year for some few months. So I think the relooking at the water management system, and second, the landscape-based approach. Now the entire planning has to be re-evaluated based on the landscape approach, and where we can do some kind of a corrections, we should immediately do. But those corrections would not be possible just by the enforcement, but we need to involve the people. And then only it will be possible to bring the real ground change.
Okay. Anand Sharma, last question to you. Do we see this pattern for the next few years as well, or do we see a certain improvement or a certain deterioration with the kind of impact that we are seeing around the world on weather?
As far as natural hazards are concerned, they're going to be there. There will be extremely heavy rains in future as well. But yes, the damages are going to be more, not mainly because of climate change. It's again because of wrong planning. Poor infrastructure, poor governance. If you go to any city, I don't know what the town planner is doing. Why they are not thinking like, it has been done in Western countries or even in China. they are going towards the sponge cities, so that if there are, heavy rainfall events, the city soaks it. Why you are making everything pakka? You have concretization everywhere. Roads are tar road, your footpaths are road. There is hardly a place for water to percolate down. So that's why there is a concept for sponge city. So that we, and for that we need to have nature-based solutions. But that, I think, is, completely lacking from our planning, and there is no vision. Governments come for 5 years. They are only bothered about staying there for 5 years. Nobody has a long-term vision for a city. And as long as this vision is lacking, these kinds of events will be repeated, and there will be more damages in years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll have to introspect and really think about what we are turning our cities into and our surroundings into. With that, I'm going to wrap this up. Dr. Sudhir Krishna, Anand Sharma and Professor Anil Gupta, thank you very much, gentlemen, for speaking on Mirror Now about this cyclone and the poor urban planning that Chennai needs to immediately rectify if it wants to normalize the situation.